Here with Washington State women's basketball head coach Kamie Ethridge. Coach, your team's had a few days out here in Austin. How have things been going for you and your team? How's practice been going, and how do you feel about your team's matchup against South Florida going into it tomorrow?
Yeah, we've been here. And you know, for those of us that have been here before in the past, you don't come in 5 or 6 days before you play. You don't do a lot of the things that we're doing here, but because we're here 4, 5, 6 days before we play, I don't know that I've ever experienced anything like that. So it's been a real unique 4 or 5 days. It feels like a really big deal, even though there's some parts of what we're doing that aren't fun. We've been locked in our rooms. We've hardly seen the sunshine. They're figuring out some things to let us get our kids out a little bit more. So it's been real constraint, but the momentum you can tell is really building. Our practices, it feels like they're just caged animals getting out and getting to play, which is awesome. You know, you can tell they haven't been running up and down and wasted much energy off the court. But every single day we've done something a little bit different, and it's been exciting for our players. You know, I think they're just thrilled to be here. They're excited to play. They've got too much time on their hands for sure. And I think, you know, it's still hard to believe that we still don't play again for another day, but I know our team is really excited and really ready. As far as South Florida, I mean, just a really good team. Tested team in their region of the country, great winning tradition. They just win all the time. I mean, I don't even know what his winning percentage is the last, 15 years, but I'm sure it's, he loses 3 or 4 games a year. So that they have a great winning tradition. And I think that goes a long way. They're a really confident team. They won their league. They haven't lost in a while. So we're going to face a real, hungry team, a physical team, a team that has, a real good identity, a big identity. They have some rebounders that are as good as anything we've seen this year. That's a real concern for us. But I think in a lot of ways, they're a lot like us. They struggle at times to put points on the board. We both average about 64 points a game. And so I think it's a really good matchup for us. I think we match up well. I think, it's going to be obviously 2 defensive minded teams. And then it's going to be who can, figure out some ways to score some points on the board. And we've got to be strategic in that. And mainly more than anything from our past experience, we've got to make sure that we're taking care of the basketball and we're not giving them extra shots or extra attempts at the basket with offensive rebounding. But to the larger point, this is the most exciting part of the year, and our team feels it and senses it and is living it right now. So it's been pretty awesome.
We're going to open the floor up to questions. We'll start with Rob Jesselson from KHQ. Go ahead, Rob.
Coach, what's it like being back in Austin for you?
I ignored it forever, and clearly, our sports information people do a great job. And I think the reality of just, how many times does something like this happen? You get to go home to the arena that you played in. And I'm trying to think of any games that I've lost there. It's the exact same gym. Obviously with the banner, I have not seen the banner up on the wall. Some people have taken pictures and sent it to me, but the first experience of going into the Irwin Center and seeing that and our team, I'm not a real braggadocious kind of person or toot my own horn. So I all that's real low played, in my mind. But they were well aware of it, and they were excited about it, and they wanted pictures, and they wanted to experience that environment. So I just love that, my experience as a player has kind of trickled down, and I think it makes them excited about playing in the same arena for a completely different reason. And if it gives us any kind of mojo, I'll take it any day of the week.
What are the odds, though, for you that, you bring Washington State to the NCAA tournament for the first time in 30 years, and it just so happens to be, back in a building that you have so many great memories in?
Yeah, people do this all the time on the NCAA tournament. In years past, they put teams against each other that have some kind of story or some kind of history. And I told the team the only way this was, intentional was that there must be someone 100 years old on the committee making these things, because it happened so long ago. But, clearly because the tournament's in San Antonio, I really did not know we were actually having to travel all the way to Austin this first round. It's exciting to be in Austin. It's not that exciting to be on a bus going to Austin, in traffic. So we spent, probably 5 hours yesterday on a bus getting through traffic. It was exciting going because we had police escorts and had a little accident on the way that had us talking the whole time. But it's just so unique. It's so unique. When they told me it was in Austin and it was the Irwin Center, that's when, your head starts spinning a little bit, and you do that. You go, what are the odds? But again, you always see that in women's basketball and in our sport, just the magnitude of it. It all comes back a full circle, generally, if you're in the game long enough, and just how small the world is and the connections that you have with people and places. And so again, for me to be able to do this and go back as a head coach, first time ever as a head coach, and play in the Irwin Center. And again, this is a place where when I was a kid, the state tournament was in the Irwin Center. And so as a kid growing up in high school, it was my dream to take a team there as a player. So this has been since you're 16 or 15. I went when I was 12 and 13 to watch girls state tournaments in Austin in that exact arena. So the history isn't just a small one when I was at Texas. This has been a long-standing, I've dreamed of walking down that tunnel. I lived it, and now I get to experience it again with my team in the most perfect environment for them and perfect situation for them, because they're experiencing the NCAA tournament. So again, small world, close the circle, and but let's go out and not get overwhelmed by this.
Sorry, did you say you guys got into an accident on the way over here?
We had three, I don't know how many cops we had. We had at least three motorcycle police, and one of them kind of got in an accident. And I was in the front of the bus and saw it, and it stopped us for a second. Again, it was traffic, and they just did the most amazing job. And we found out that the guy he's fine. They let us know, and we're going to make sure that we send him some Cougs gear, because it was unbelievable how the police escorted us from San Antonio there in traffic, like in bumper to bumper traffic. And can't say enough about them. Feel awful that one of them got, again, we've heard he's fine and everything's worked out, but it was really a scary moment, and feel so bad for him, but just so appreciative of the efforts at the NCAA, obviously, and then the local police and county and police over in Austin. So yeah, but it had us talking and standing up and looking and rubbernecking and all those things that you're not supposed to do, when you see the little accident.
Well, I'm glad he's okay. Thanks very much, Coach.
Hey, Kamie, this is Theo from the Spokesman Review. Do you have a favorite memory from the Irwin Center that if you can think about one moment from your playing career there that kind of sticks out more than the rest?
Well, I think again, it's more probably when I was in high school. When I was a sophomore in high school, we lost the state championship to Duncanville, and Duncanville is still, the biggest name and probably one of the biggest names in Texas girls basketball. And so we lost we lost to South Oak Cliff, which is sorry about that. We lost to South Oak Cliff out of Dallas, which had a future teammate on that team. And Gary Blair, if you can believe that, from Texas A&M, was the head coach of Dallas South Oak Cliff when I was a sophomore in high school. So his world started as a high school coach at South Oak Cliff. And the next year as a junior, we came in and we beat Duncanville in the finals. And that was, again, I think the younger you are and you win at that stage, that might be some of the greatest memories. Then you get to college, and then you get calloused of going into the Irwin Center because you practice there every day and you get yelled at every day, and you get, you're sweating and you're bleeding and you're, in your locker room. So it's a totally different feel when that's your practice facility. I think the one that I missed out on, and that's the one that I think is that I noticed. I always know the losses or what you miss out on was we were the number one team going into the tournament my junior year. We had to go to Western Kentucky, who was another great program in the regional, because Austin was hosting the Final Four. So we didn't get to host the region, and we got upset there. And so I watched the Final Four as a junior in college, and someone else lift a trophy when we were hosting that year. And those are the things that the longer you go in your career, you go, man, that would have been the ultimate, to win a game and the confetti and hold a trophy up. But so I've had great experiences, obviously won a bazillion games there. And I think that's the reason that have such an affection to the Irwin Center, is just, I've lived this thing so long, and it was a part of my life, and obviously very sentimental in getting the chance to go back and be there with my team.
I wanted to get your thoughts on the weight room disparities between the men's and the women's tournament. It's obviously been a pretty big talking point through the first 3 or 4 days. How has that impacted your team, and what kind of conversations have you guys had internally about that?
I just think it's not the, us personally, we lost our strength coach at the airport. He got contact traced, and he wasn't able to come. It was just out of an abundance of precaution and caution. So not having him here to lead us in our daily routine it hasn't stunned us, but it's a little bit different. And for him not to experience this, I feel awful. But where we were in the season, we're not going to super lift prior to this first game. And we really weren't, because we got here a day later than other teams. Had we gotten here on Tuesday versus Wednesday, we might have wanted to, because you don't play until Sunday. If we'd been here Tuesday, gotten through all this stuff, but we weren't going to be able to, because you were going to be kind of in a protocol, and you wouldn't have been able to get out until late Wednesday night. So the lifting, what's the disappointment is, it's more of an afterthought. I think that's the thing, is that if it's so important to the men, and they have it set up so pristine and perfectly, why would it not be important for the women? And I even saw I thought I saw on the University of Texas men's website, social media, where they were actually in a big open field arena where they had all sorts of yard games, and like dodgeball and footballs and batting, paddle games. And they had an opportunity, and they were throwing the football around some indoor arena. I mean, we haven't had any light of day. We haven't had, other than walking over to test one time a day and then getting out to practice when we were able to do that. So it's the lack of, it's one thing to be locked up in a hotel room. It's another thing not to even be able to, have a walking path. Or again, for the staff, I mean, it's the players and the staff, like, you have no play, you go stir crazy if you're just sitting in your room a little bit. So again, the NCAA has had, this is unbelievable what they've put on. I can't say thank you enough. I'm so excited to be here. I think our players shouldn't know any different. We've never been to the NCAA tournament. I think the fact that we've been here 4 or 5 days gives us a really unique experience. I am not going to sit here and complain top to bottom about it. It's the small details. It's the no, we're not going to give this to you, and you shouldn't ask for it. Like, you should just be happy you get this. I think that's the difference. It's, we're not going to totally think about you until then, and you should just be happy you're here. Feeling that you get if you're us and you see the differences. And so the hard part for coaches is to look at your kids and say, yeah, you didn't deserve it. They do, you don't. Or, how do you communicate that to your players? So it's a bigger picture. It should have been thought out better. Yes, it was in the manual that the weight room wouldn't be here. But if we're reading that in the manual, you're thinking that the men don't have it either. And then to think that the men do have it, it's an inequality. It shouldn't have happened again. But, they're rectifying it. They're creating a walking path for us. The weight room is up and going here. I think at least our staff is scheduled to go just to get out. We obviously wouldn't want to lift the day before a game. So it's a big issue, but it shouldn't be the overwhelming issue. And anything that we can learn and grow from is an awesome thing. And I know the NCAA will. And but at the same time, we're not going to get overwhelmed by it, because we just need to be who we are. And our routine hasn't been in the weight room, hasn't been affected too much right now.
How do you think the inequity in the sport between the men's and the women's game has changed since you were a player, or is this an example that it really hasn't changed, do you think?
Oh, it's changed so much. I mean, and it should. I mean, good for the NCAA. I mean, they're growing, they're getting better. We have great leadership on the women's side. The WBCA and our Coaches Association is a great a friend for us, and they get a lot done. I think the interesting thing for us is this is the one sport, high profile sport, that is apples to apples, and I know people will go, men's basketball is way bigger and you're not, but this is the one that and it goes on at the same time. So it's so easy to go, this is what they have, this is what you have, this is what they have. And you don't really get that in other sports, because in track and field, all the sports are at the same time. So it is equal. All the other sports, swimming and diving, theirs are going to be equal. It's happening. I mean, they run it the exact same way. Volleyballs probably are different because it's not a national as much as basketball and basketball. Same sport going on at the same time, and you see the discrepancies. And yes, we can go into revenue, but revenue, there's two sides to the NCAA. They do have to make revenue, but they're not set up as a revenue producing organization. So equality has to be a part of that. And this is the one that just can get social media. There's really no secrets anymore. It's probably always been this way, and they've operated this way, and it's just not going to happen anymore. You're not going to get away with it anymore. And just like any of us on social media, you got to be accountable. You got to be responsible. And so this is good for it. It's going to make it, for those that come after this, you're going to have it better, and it's going to be more equal, and we're going to get this thing right, and they will get it right. And I believe that, and I trust it, and it's not going to dampen our experience. It's just going to make us laugh a little bit more and enjoy it. And believe me, we're not going hungry. We haven't had the best of meals. Some of our picky eaters have struggled a tiny bit, but that's only because every single meal they get at our university and every single meal on the road, we give them choices. We don't just put food in front of them. And for 2 or 3 days here, we weren't given choices. And that's not the worst thing that can happen to any of us. And it wasn't the worst thing ever. And people would probably be, yelling at us for why are you being so picky? Because you got it pretty good. And so we do have it really good. So we're going to enjoy it as we go, but let's make some changes. Let's be better.
Going back to South Florida, what do you guys feel like you need to take away to kind of beat that team? Is it more so their 3-point shooting or their rebounding, or a little bit of both?
Yeah, I think it's a rebounding. I think that is, I mean, kind of a couple of kids that between the two of them average 10 offensive rebounds. And it's not like the people in their league didn't know they rebound. They all know it, and they still get it. They still, if it's just a jump ball, if you're not making a hole, they're going to get it. So we understand they're going to get some against us, but we just have to have 5 people really conscious about deboarding, every single time the ball goes up. It's not like they're a great shooting team. They take early shots. They take early shots without any conscience whatsoever, because they know they're going to get the offensive rebound. So we've got to be great in trans D. We can't give them anything easy. And then we've got to limit their second and third chance attempts at every possession. And I think we're going to be better on the offensive end. I like how we're playing. I like how we're moving. You know, and my biggest issue is, you know, not to be afraid of this stage and you know, embrace getting an opportunity to go out there and we got a 40-minute game. We don't have to beat them in the first 10. We're not going to get beat in the first 10. So just really understand and play a really complete game. And I think we have a great chance.
They seem to be a pretty small team, but what kind of makes them so good at rebounding despite maybe not having the tallest team out there? Or are they just pretty scrappy?
Yeah, I mean, those two inside kids are just, I mean, you see it every once in a while. You just see a mentality to rebound, an instinct. I mean, it's not just you know, you teach it. I mean, I think he probably teaches offensive rebounding really a lot, but I think you get certain kids. I mean, Dennis Rodman, my gosh, I don't think anyone had to teach him how to rebound. It was an instinct. He knew where the ball was going to go. They're longer than maybe their size. If they're 6 foot, I think their length is longer than that. And I think their jumping ability makes them, you know, gets them the advantage. And they're slippery, and they're not going to stop after getting hit once. They're just relentless on the board. So it's a talent, and it's a skill, and it's a mindset. And I think it probably is a staple to how Jose and South Florida's always played. So we've got to manage that.
Thanks, Kamie.
Thanks.